Do you want to discover the number one reason you feel sick and tired all the time and the single best thing you can do about it? Well, then keep watching this video to learn exactly what that's about. Hi, my name is Jesse. Welcome to my channel, Open Source Owners, where we try to answer and put some meat behind the question, what if humans had an owner's manual? Wouldn't that be nice? What we're going to talk about today is specifically chronic disease. And if you're not familiar with these numbers, this is going to be a little bit sort of disturbing at first, but then I will tell you the single best thing you can do to begin to reverse the trend of chronic disease. But first, chronic, of course, just means long-lasting, ever-present. You wake up in the morning, you still feel chronically stressed out, you still feel chronically in pain or struggling in some way, shape, or form. Kind of doesn't matter what's going on, what season it is, etc. Dis-ease, I like to think of disease as the word dis-ease. So the body is no longer in ease. The systems of the body are no longer working as they should. And we'll talk more about that. And that could be like your gut health is just sort of always at dis-ease. You're always oscillating between diarrhea, constipation, or pain, etc. Or your mental health is always at dis-ease. It's difficult to remain stress-free. It's difficult to remain happy or focused. It's difficult to not have anxiety or depression. And same thing with your physical health. You're always having these chronic ailments, this dysfunction in the body. That's what chronic disease is all about. Now, I have a premise that I want to share with you. This premise can be borne out through understandings of biology and human health. If we focus on health instead of disease, this premise, I believe, is substantiated in the scientific literature, but also just like basic first principles thinking about living on Earth and being a human on Earth. This premise, I believe, is true, or at least mostly true. So the premise is we are not meant to be in chronic disease by nature. Our bodies are mind-blowingly sophisticated with regard to health and are meant to work smoothly and with ease in all the areas I mentioned above: mental health, physical health, gut health, energy health, relational health, etc. So the mind-blowingly sophisticated part is something that this channel is really focused on. The powerful connection between the microbial world and the mitochondrial world and human health is something that the more you study it, the more you study the chemical pathways of the human body and the metabolic pathways of the human body, the more you recognize how mind-blowingly sophisticated it really is, right? So if that's the case, then why are chronic disease rates so appalling at this point? 6 in 10 Americans have chronic disease, which includes mental health, and 4 in 10 have multiple chronic diseases. And this number is only going up. It's on a hockey stick curved. 66% of Americans are overweight, 33% are obese. 90% of doctors feel medicine is on the wrong track. 83% of doctors have thought about quitting medicine. I don't know if you knew that, but most doctors, it seems from these numbers, are actually not quite pleased with the way things are going, and they're feeling burnt out. 50% of doctors feel they're often or always burnt out, right? So let's go through a few more chronic disease rates just to sort of like fully understand the world that we're living in with chronic disease. The average doctor makes the same money they did in the 1970s, but has 2 times the number of patients. Primary care physician sees patients on average 10 to 12 minutes and has a roster of 2,500 patients. You can see why one might feel burnt out, right? It's just you're putting them through the mill. And what can you really glean from someone at a deep, complex, sophisticated level and about their health in 10 to 12 minutes? Obviously not a lot. It's very much like here's a pill for every ill sort of factory model of health. How does this lead to recovery and addressing chronic disease? How is it possible that we're going to get people from chronic disease to chronic health in 10 to 12 minutes at a time with your doctor who already feels burnt out and ill-prepared to deal with the complexities of the biological machine that we are? 3.8 trillion spent annually, and that's a 2013 number on chronic disease, and that number is only going up. It's estimated that 47 trillion will be spent globally by 2030. This is the totality of what we're dealing with. It's a really burdensome to the medical system, to insurance systems, to retirement systems, but also to family systems, to health systems, to building a world that's sane and healthy. I mean, we can't really live in a world that feels sane and is feeling productive and feeling inspired when so many people are struggling with not just one chronic disease, but multiple chronic diseases, making their life, just a survival mechanism, just trying to make it through the next day, just trying to make it through to the next year. This is not what we want fundamentally, right? So what is the solution, or what are the solutions? And of course, there's many solutions to this. But I want to give you the number one thing that at least I would say that we should focus on to reverse our chronic disease. And that essentially is altering your microbiome. And if we want to be more specific, making sure that your microbiome, how you're treating your microbiome, is benefiting your neurotransmitter function and health, because the neurotransmitters may not be and are not the cause of diseases or mental struggles, but they're symptoms that our microbiome is not working well. And with the microbiome, I'm just going to also add in there the mitochondria, which is sort of it's in the same subset. If you're worrying about the microbiome, you're also going to be worrying and helping to provide value and function and service your mitochondria as well. When you start altering the microbiome and the mitochondria, and you think about what you're doing in terms of food and lifestyle for their health, then your neurotransmitter health, your sleep health, your quality of life health goes up and up and up and up because of how powerfully sophisticated our microbiome is in terms of being a human. So how do we do this specifically? Well, I would suggest testing to alter your diet and your gut health by working with the best functional medicine doctors or practitioners that are out there. They're not the only ones, but what I like about the functional medicine space right now is that they're bringing in testing to understand your specific genes, your specific needs, your specific allergy foods or trouble foods, instead of just trial and erroring a bunch of different diets. Now, if you want to just do it yourself, the very best thing you can do is start by balancing your blood sugar. And there's a great book by Mark Hyman that I always suggest to my clients called The Blood Sugar Solution, which is a 10-day reset diet that has all sorts of documented benefits to everything from waistline to mental health to sleeping better to mood. And it's just a quick 10-day diet. The book walks you through everything you got to do. Now, it's a big change. It's a big lifestyle event. But it's only 10 days, so you can probably try anything for 10 days. And all that diet is based around is making sure that you're not having massive blood sugar spikes at any time. It's trying to balance out your blood sugar, your insulin levels, your leptin resistance, that type of thing. This has a downstream effect of affecting your hunger hormones, your mental health hormones, your neurotransmitter function, etc. So once you do that and you get results in 10 days, which you will, you'll feel better in 10 days. You might be missing some important foods and some important vices that you like to eat, but we can slowly introduce those back in. I don't think we should reach the place where we're demonizing foods. That's not healthy. That's part of a chronic disease too. All foods are welcome. It's just some foods you need to be very specific about when you indulge in them. Some foods maybe you can never eat, but you're going to be different than me. I'm going to be different than you. And it's just going to be very individualized. And that's why I suggest the first step, which is actually work with the very best in functional medicine space, because then you can get a very tested system about your own microbiome and really work with your own unique system. Eventually, though, I think we should get to the place where we're intuitively eating, where we're not relying on tests or someone else with authority over us and our own health, and instead reclaiming that space in a sovereign way where we learn how to best eat for our own mental health and our own reversing of chronic disease. Okay, after you balance your blood sugar, then you want to learn to burn fat, which is just called ketosis. Everybody's probably heard of that, keto, etc. But burning fat is a fundamentally cleaner fuel than burning sugars. So that's why ketosis is not just a fad. It's actually just a fundamental feature of being a human. We can burn two fuel sources, sugars or fats. We want to teach our body to be able to burn fats. It is the healthiest, cleanest form of fuel. Fats actually healthy fats are used by the microbiome and the mitochondria so that they function at their most optimum state. And then when you're feeding the microbiome and the mitochondria on like carbohydrates and sugars, you're actually causing damage to them. So you're undermining your health, and you're creating a chronic disease type situation. Now, the key to ketosis, as far as I know at this point, is we want to cycle in and out. We want to be able to move. We're like a flex fuel car. We want to be able to burn sugar and carbohydrates, but we also want to be able to burn fat. And the cyclical nature of the best practices in the ketosis world is critical, because you can have real downsides of just only being in ketosis at all times. So we don't want to do that, as far as I know at this point. Now, if you like that, so that's kind of it. If you'd like to know a lot more, please feel free to download this 60-page ebook that I wrote called The Owner's Manual Part 2, all about the learning and knowledge aspect. So it's just a data-heavy document. Get that in the link below. So that was the video. Discover the number one reason you feel sick and the single best thing you can do about it. Now, there's a lot more to this space, of course, but if you just take that and run with that and really, really focus on getting the blood sugar balance and learning to burn fat for fuel, you will notice that many of the markers of your chronic disease, and especially in like just your physical performance, you'll notice many of those improve, from sleep to energy to focus to hunger cravings to irritability. Many things will begin to improve. And then with that win behind your sales, you can actually begin to more fine-tune things. And maybe it's that point you want to work with a practitioner who's really an expert in testing and revising, protocols and stuff like that. And it's at that point that you might want to get supplements, or it's at that point that you might want to change your movement routine. So you begin to work out more, or do like yoga or physical things more, etc. But I would say that what I just highlighted is the single biggest leverage point, the single highest place in the watershed that we could intervene to improve nearly all chronic disease states. And that is the video. I hope that you found that useful. If you did, hit like and subscribe and the bell and do all the YouTube things, because that helps the channel grow and reach more people. And of course, share. Comments are always welcome. I'm always looking at the comments, and I'd like to see what people are interested in. That helps me know what videos are really making sense to people and landing home, and which videos maybe aren't. So that helps improve my game here on YouTube. So thanks, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take action on this, and I hope that this benefits you and your loved ones in our real epidemic with chronic disease. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.